The mining colony on Keller's Rest looked small against the purple sky. 3,000 people lived there, working hard to dig rare minerals from the rocky ground. The minerals were valuable, needed for building ships and stations across human space. Jake Morrison stood at the observation window of the command center, watching the workers move between the drilling sites and processing buildings. Jake had been the colony commander for 2 years. He was a practical man, 43 years old, with gray starting to show in his dark hair. He knew every person in the colony by name. He knew which families had children, which workers complained about the food, and which engineers could fix anything with spare parts and determination. The communication console beeped. Jake walked over and pressed the button. A young officer appeared on the screen. "Commander Morrison, we're receiving the weekly supply report from the transport ship. They'll arrive in 4 days," the officer said. "Good. Make sure the landing pad is clear. Last time they had to circle for 20 minutes because someone parked a loader in the wrong spot." Jake replied. The officer nodded and disconnected. Jake returned to the window. Keller's Rest was far from Earth, far from the main human colonies. Out here on the frontier, help was weeks away if something went wrong. The colony had basic defenses, a few railgun turrets mounted on the walls, and 200 security personnel. Most of them had never fired their weapons at anything except training targets. Across the galaxy, on the massive orbital station called Horizon Prime, Dr. Lisa Brennan sat in her laboratory, surrounded by screens and equipment. She rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the data again. 7 years. 7 years of work on the teleporter project, and they still could not make it work reliably. Lisa was 38, thin and intense, with blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She had devoted her career to solving the problem of instant transportation. Teleportation was supposed to be impossible according to old physics, but the discovery of subspace had changed everything. If they could crack the equations, they could move supplies, people, even weapons, across vast distances in seconds. Ryan Carter walked into the lab carrying 2 cups of coffee. He was younger than Lisa, only 29, but brilliant. He handed her a cup and sat down at his own workstation. The simulation ran again. Same result. "The energy signature is still too unstable," Ryan said. "We need to adjust the subspace field generator. The oscillation frequency is wrong," Lisa replied, taking a sip of coffee. "The military review board meets next month. If we don't show progress, they'll cancel the project," Ryan said quietly. Lisa knew he was right. The Commonwealth military had spent enormous amounts of money on teleporter research. Admiral Kate Preston had been patient, but even she had limits. The military wanted results, not more excuses about theoretical problems. Halfway across the sector, Captain Ben Torres walked onto the bridge of the frigate Valiant Dawn. His ship was small by military standards, only 300 meters long. With a crew of 140, the Valiant Dawn had railgun batteries, missile tubes, and heavy armor. It was not fancy, but it was tough. Ben was 35, athletic and confident, with dark hair and sharp eyes. He had been commanding the Valiant Dawn for 3 years, patrolling the quiet frontier and occasionally chasing smugglers. The work was boring most of the time, which was fine. Boring meant peaceful. Nicole Graham sat at the tactical station. She was the ship's tactical officer, responsible for weapons and defensive systems. She was 28, smart and quick, with red hair and a serious expression. Next to her, Chief Engineer Kevin Hayes monitored the engine readouts. Kevin was 41, broad-shouldered and calm, the kind of man who could fix anything given enough time and tools. "Captain, we're receiving a routine patrol update from Fleet Command," Nicole said. Ben walked over and read the message on her screen. It was standard information about ship movements and scheduled maintenance. Nothing interesting. But at the bottom, there was a note about increased activity by the Valorian Empire near the frontier. "The Valorians have been sending more scouts through this sector," Nicole added. Fleet intelligence says it's probably routine. Probably, Ben repeated. He did not like the word probably. In his experience, probably meant nobody actually knew what was happening. The Valorian Empire was one of the major powers in the galaxy. They had hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships, and technology that made human equipment look primitive. Humans had been exploring space for only 200 years. The Valorians had been building their empire for 3,000. Most alien species looked down on humanity. Humans did not have energy shields that could stop anything. Humans did not have plasma cannons that could melt through armor in seconds. Humans had railguns, simple weapons that fired chunks of metal very fast. The aliens thought it was funny, like watching someone fight with rocks and sticks. But human railguns worked. They were reliable, easy to maintain, and incredibly destructive. A tungsten slug, moving at a fraction of light speed, could punch through almost anything. The problem was getting close enough to use them, and surviving long enough to reload. Back on Keller's Rest, Jake Morrison finished his evening inspection of the colony. Everything looked normal. The workers were tired but healthy. The equipment was functioning. The food supplies were adequate. He returned to his quarters and sat down at his desk. An encrypted message appeared on his personal terminal. Jake frowned. Encrypted messages were rare out here. He entered his authorization code and waited, while the message decoded. It was from Commonwealth Intelligence. The message was brief and formal. Intelligence had detected unusual communications from Valorian military units near the frontier. There were signs of fleet movements, possibly toward human territory. The intelligence analysts could not confirm hostile intent, but recommended increased alertness. Jake saved the message and leaned back in his chair. Hostile intent. The word sounded so clean and professional. In reality, hostile intent meant ships arriving without warning, weapons firing, people dying. He thought about the 3,000 colonists sleeping in their quarters, trusting him to keep them safe. The alarms started screaming at 4 a.m. Jake Morrison was awake and running before his mind fully processed the sound. He pulled on his uniform and sprinted down the corridor toward the command center. Other people were emerging from their quarters, confused and frightened. "What's happening?" someone shouted. "Stay calm and follow emergency procedures," Jake called back as he ran. He reached the command center and found the night shift already at their stations. The main screen showed what had triggered the alarms. Ships, 6 large vessels, had dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the star system. The computer identified them as Valorian military design. "Get me a better scan," Jake ordered. The sensor officer worked quickly. More data appeared on the screen. 3 cruisers, 2 destroyers, and 1 large command ship. A full battle group. Jake felt his stomach tighten. This was not a patrol. This was an invasion force. "Open a communication channel," Jake said. The communications officer tried, but there was no response from the Valorian ships. They were moving deeper into the system, heading directly toward Keller's Rest. Jake grabbed the emergency transmitter and began recording. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of the human colony Keller's Rest. We are a civilian mining operation authorized under the Galactic Treaty of Neutral Expansion. If you have business here, please respond through proper diplomatic channels." He sent the message and waited. 3 minutes passed. Then, the communication console lit up. A face appeared on the screen. Not human. The Valorian commander had pale blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. It wore elaborate armor decorated with symbols of rank. "I am War Commander Thexlar of the Valorian Imperial Fleet. This system belongs to the Valorian Empire by ancient territorial rights. Your presence here is illegal. You have 1 planetary rotation to evacuate all personnel and equipment." Jake kept his voice steady. "Commander Thexlar, this colony has been legally established. We have documentation from the Galactic Council. We are not leaving. Thank you for watching." And quoting to the deferent, end quote. Vexlar made a sound that might have been laughter. You are primitives, playing with technology you barely understand. We could destroy your colony in minutes. I am being generous by giving you time to leave. Do not test my patience. The screen went dark. Jake stood still for a moment, thinking. One planetary rotation meant 28 hours. Not much time. Send an emergency distress signal to Commonwealth Fleet. Maximum priority. Tell them we have a Valorian battle group demanding evacuation. And prepare for possible hostile action, Jake ordered. He turned to his security chief. Get everyone to their emergency stations. I want those railgun turrets powered up and ready. Start moving civilians into the underground bunkers. Move the children first. The command center exploded into activity. Jake walked to the window and looked out at the colony. People were already moving, following the drills they had practiced. He hoped it would be enough. On board the Valiant Dawn, Captain Ben Torres received the distress signal from Keller's Rest. He read it twice to make sure he understood correctly. A Valorian battle group. Demanding evacuation. Possible attack imminent. Nicole, calculate our fastest route to Keller's Rest, Ben ordered. Nicole Graham's fingers flew across her console. At maximum burn, we can reach them in 14 hours. That's 2 hours after the Valorian ultimatum expires. Ben thought about the numbers. 1 frigate against a Valorian battle group. It was suicide. But he could not abandon 3,000 people to die or become refugees. Kevin, I need maximum power to the engines. Push them as hard as you can without melting the reactor, Ben said. Kevin Hayes nodded. I can give you an extra 5%, but we'll need a full overhaul after this run. Do it. Nicole, send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we're responding to the distress call and request immediate reinforcements. Ben knew that reinforcements would take days to arrive. The Commonwealth fleet was spread thin across dozens of systems. The Valiant Dawn would be alone. On Horizon Prime, Lisa Brennan was still in her laboratory when the emergency alert came through. She read the message from Keller's Rest and felt a chill run through her body. The Valorians were actually attacking a human colony. Ryan Carter burst into the lab. Did you see the alert? Yes. We need to do something, Lisa said. What can we do? We're researchers, not soldiers, Ryan replied. Lisa stared at the teleporter prototype sitting in the corner of the lab. It was large and complex, covered in cables and sensors. They had tested it dozens of times with small objects. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes the objects arrived, damaged or not at all. They had never tested it with anything important. We could send supplies to them. Medical equipment, ammunition, food, Lisa said slowly. The calculations would take hours, and we don't know if it would work. The test results have been inconsistent, Ryan said. Then we start calculating now. Get the coordinate data for Keller's Rest. I'll begin working on the power requirements, Lisa ordered. Ryan hesitated, then nodded and ran to his workstation. Lisa pulled up the complex equations that governed subspace teleportation. She had spent 7 years learning these equations. Now she would find out if all that work meant anything. Back on Keller's Rest, Jake Morrison watched the countdown. 24 hours remaining. The colony had moved over 1,000 civilians into the underground bunkers. The bunkers were cramped and uncomfortable, but they could survive a bombardment. The remaining colonists were security personnel and essential staff needed to operate the railgun turrets. Jake inspected the defenses personally. They had 8 railgun turrets mounted on the colony walls. Each turret could fire tungsten slugs at tremendous velocity. The railguns were simple weapons, reliable and powerful, but limited in range. They would only get one chance. The security chief met him at the number 3 turret. All turrets are operational, Commander. We have full ammunition loads. The power generators are running at maximum capacity. Good. Make sure every gun crew knows the firing sequence. We coordinate our shots. Hit them all at once. Don't waste ammunition on individual targets, Jake said. The security chief saluted and moved on. Jake looked up at the sky. He could not see the Valorian ships yet, but he knew they were up there, waiting. War Commander Thex Lar was probably confident that the humans would surrender without a fight. The Valorians saw humanity as weak, primitive, not worth worrying about. Jake smiled grimly. The Valorians were about to learn an important lesson. Primitive did not mean helpless. Humanity had survived on Earth for millions of years by being tough, adaptable, and refusing to give up. Those traits had not changed just because humans now lived among the stars. The Valorian ships moved closer to Keller's Rest as the deadline approached. Jake Morrison watched them on the sensors. Massive vessels bristling with weapons. They were beautiful in a terrible way, sleek and deadly. The command ship alone was 3 times larger than any human warship. 1 hour until the deadline, the sensor officer reported. Jake opened the colony-wide communication channel. His voice echoed through every building and bunker. This is Commander Morrison. The Valorians will attack soon. Everyone in the bunkers, stay there no matter what happens. Gun crews, wait for my command. We fire together or not at all. Remember your training. Stay calm. We can do this. He closed the channel and took a deep breath. Around him, the command center staff worked quietly. They were scared. He was scared. But fear could be controlled, turned into focus and determination. The deadline passed. For 5 minutes, nothing happened. Then the Valorian command ship sent another message. War Commander Thex Lar appeared on the screen again. You have refused to leave. This is your final warning. Surrender now or face destruction. Jake looked directly at the alien face. We are not leaving our home. If you want this colony, you'll have to take it. Thex Lar's expression changed to something that might have been respect or might have been anger. So be it. Your bravery is admirable, but pointless. The screen went dark. 3 seconds later, the Valorian ships opened fire. Bright beams of plasma energy crossed the distance between the ships and the colony. They struck the defensive shields that protected the main buildings. The shields held for a moment, then began to fail. Energy washed across the colony walls, scorching metal and stone. Shields down to 40%, someone shouted. Hold fire. Wait for them to get closer, Jake ordered. More plasma beams struck the colony. The shields collapsed completely. The next volley hit the outer buildings, causing explosions and fires. Damage reports began flooding in. Power Station 3 was offline. The eastern wall had structural damage. 2 gun turrets were destroyed. But the Valorian ships were moving closer, confident in their superiority. They wanted to finish the colony quickly and move on. That confidence was their mistake. Range? Jake asked. 2,000 kilometers and closing. The sensor officer replied. 1,800 kilometers. 1,500 kilometers. Jake watched the display. The Valorian ships were spreading out, trying to hit the colony from multiple angles. Perfect. They were giving him clear firing solutions. All turrets, target the light destroyers on the flanks. Fire on my mark, Jake said into the tactical channel. The gun crews acknowledged. Jake waited 3 more seconds. The Valorians were at 1,200 kilometers now, well within effective range. Fire. 6 railgun turrets fired at once. The tungsten slugs, each one weighing several tons, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. They crossed the distance in less than a second. The Valorians, expecting slow projectile weapons, had not bothered with evasive maneuvers. The slugs hit with devastating force. One Valorian destroyer lost its entire front section, torn apart by the kinetic impact. The other destroyer took 3 direct hits and began spinning out of control. Atmosphere and debris venting into space. Explosions rippled through both ships as internal systems failed. On the bridge of the Valorian command ship, War Commander Thex Lar stared at the tactical display in shock. 2 of his ships were crippled or destroyed by primitive kinetic weapons. It was impossible. And yet, it had happened. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Do not underestimate these humans again. Texlar ordered. The remaining Valorian ships began moving unpredictably, making themselves harder to hit. They increased their fire on the colony, hammering the buildings with plasma. More explosions rocked Keller's Rest. Jake felt the command center shake. Reload all turrets. Target the cruisers. The railguns fired again. But this time, the Valorians were ready. Their point defense systems shot down some of the slugs. Others missed as the ships dodged. Only one hit connected, causing minor damage to a cruiser's engine section. On board the Valiant Dawn, Captain Ben Torres drove his ship toward Keller's Rest at maximum speed. The engines screamed with the strain. Every minute felt like an hour. He could see the data feed from the colony showing the battle in progress. How long? Ben asked. 2 hours, 15 minutes, Nicole Graham replied. Too long. The colony would be destroyed before they arrived. Ben clenched his fists in frustration. Then, an idea struck him. Nicole, can we fire at extreme range? If we launch missiles now, they would arrive around the same time we do. Nicole calculated quickly. Yes, but the Valorians would see them coming and shoot them down easily. Maybe. But it might distract them. Make them divide their attention. Ben said. Launching missiles now, Nicole confirmed. 10 missiles left the Valiant Dawn's launch tubes and began their long acceleration toward Keller's Rest. Ben knew they probably would not accomplish much, but any advantage was worth taking. On Horizon Prime, Lisa Brennan stared at the power readings in disbelief. The teleporter was drawing energy far beyond what the calculations predicted. The subspace field was growing larger and more unstable. Ryan, shut it down. Something's wrong, Lisa shouted. I can't. The safety protocols aren't responding. The field is self-sustaining, Ryan replied, his voice panicked. Then disconnect the power supply manually. Ryan ran to the power junction and pulled the emergency release. The subspace field was drawing energy directly from the ambient quantum fluctuations around it. Something they had thought impossible. Lisa, if this keeps growing, it could tear a hole in the station, Ryan said. Lisa made a decision. Then we use it. Send the ammunition to the Valiant Dawn. All of it. Right now. Ryan stared at her. We don't know if it will work. We don't have a choice. Do it. Ryan input the coordinates for the Valiant Dawn's cargo bay. He activated the teleportation sequence. The entire ammunition stockpile they had prepared, enough railgun rounds to sustain a prolonged battle, vanished in a flash of blue light. On the Valiant Dawn, Kevin Hayes was in the cargo bay when reality suddenly shifted. There was no sound, no warning. One moment the bay was empty. The next moment it was filled with crates of ammunition. Kevin stood frozen, unable to process what he had just witnessed. Captain, we just received a massive ammunition delivery. I have no idea how it got here. Kevin reported over the communication system. Ben Torres felt hope surge through him. Someone, somewhere, had found a way to help. Load those rounds into our magazines. We're going to need every single one. But the teleportation had another effect that nobody predicted. The subspace field created by Lisa's teleporter generated a massive shockwave that propagated through the system at faster than light speed. The wave was harmless to physical matter, but it disrupted every exotic enter. The Valiant Dawn arrived at Keller's Rest 90 minutes after the battle ended. Captain Ben Torres stood on the bridge, staring at the debris field floating in space. Pieces of Valorian ships drifted everywhere, twisted metal and shattered hulls. He had expected to find a destroyed colony. Instead, he found a victory. Get me Commander Morrison, Ben ordered. Jake Morrison's face appeared on the screen. He looked exhausted, with dirt and ash on his uniform. But he was smiling. Captain Torres, good to see you. Though you missed all the excitement. I can see that. What happened here, Commander? Jake explained the battle, the railgun attacks, and the strange energy wave that had disabled the Valorian systems at the critical moment. Ben listened carefully, trying to understand how a small mining colony had defeated a Valorian battle group. We're still analyzing what caused that energy disruption. It came from nowhere and saved our lives, Jake said. Ben thought about the ammunition that had appeared in his cargo bay. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. Someone had teleported supplies to his ship, and that same technology had somehow affected the Valorians. We're going to stay in system for a while, help with repairs, and make sure the Valorians don't come back, Ben said. Appreciate it, Captain. We've got 43 dead and half the colony damaged. But we're alive. We'll rebuild, Jake replied. The transmission ended. Nicole Graham turned to Ben. Captain, I'm detecting multiple faster-than-light signatures. More ships arriving. Ben tensed, ready for another fight. Then the identification codes came through. Commonwealth fleet vessels. Admiral Kate Preston had sent reinforcements. 3 cruisers and 4 destroyers emerged from faster-than-light travel and took up defensive positions around Keller's Rest. The lead cruiser sent a message. Captain Torres, this is Captain Steve Richards on the Defiant. Admiral Preston wants a full report immediately. Ben began composing his report, knowing that this battle would change everything. Humanity had just proven it could fight and win against a major galactic power. On Horizon Prime, Lisa Brennan sat in a meeting room with military officials and Commonwealth administrators. Admiral Kate Preston sat at the head of the table, a stern woman in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes. She listened to Lisa's explanation of the teleporter and the accidental shockwave. So you're telling me this energy wave disabled every Valorian ship in the system? Admiral Preston asked. Yes, Admiral. The subspace disruption interfered with their exotic energy systems. Their plasma weapons, shields, sensors, everything stopped working temporarily, Lisa explained. But our railguns kept firing. Correct. Kinetic weapons and conventional systems were unaffected. The shockwave only disrupts exotic energy manipulation, Lisa said. Admiral Preston leaned back in her chair. Do you understand what this means, Dr. Brennan? You've accidentally created a weapon that neutralizes every advantage our enemies have, while leaving our own systems functional. Ryan Carter spoke up from his seat next to Lisa. With respect, Admiral, we didn't create a weapon. We created a teleporter. The shockwave was an unintended side effect. A side effect that saved 3,000 lives and destroyed a Valorian battle group, Admiral Preston replied. I don't care if it was intentional or not. I care that it works. Can you reproduce the effect? Lisa hesitated. Possibly. We need more testing. The energy requirements are enormous, and we don't fully understand the physics yet. Then you'll have all the resources you need to figure it out. Money, equipment, personnel, whatever you want. This project just became the Commonwealth's highest priority, Admiral Preston said. The meeting continued for hours. Military strategists discussed tactics and deployment. Engineers talked about power requirements and range limitations. Politicians argued about diplomatic implications. Lisa felt overwhelmed by the attention. She had spent 7 years working in obscurity. Now everyone wanted to know about her research. After the meeting, Admiral Preston pulled Lisa aside. Dr. Brennan, I know you're a scientist, not a soldier. But what you've created here could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The Valorian Empire has been expanding for centuries. Other species live in fear of them. And now, humanity has a way to level the playing field. Dawn. I just wanted to solve the teleportation problem, Lisa said quietly. I know. But sometimes our work has consequences we never imagined. You need to be ready for what comes next, Admiral Preston replied. News of the battle spread quickly through human space. The victory at Keller's Rest was broadcast on every communication channel. People celebrated in the streets. Humanity had been the underdog for so long, dismissed and ignored by the elder races. Now, they had proven themselves. But the news also spread beyond human territory. The Valorian Empire demanded explanations. How had a primitive human colony destroyed their ships? The Thelm Confederacy, another major galactic power, began reassessing their intelligence about human capabilities. Smaller species watched and wondered if the balance of power was shifting. Jake Morrison worked day and night to rebuild Keller's Rest. Supply ships arrived with construction materials and replacement equipment. The Commonwealth sent additional security forces and upgraded the colony's defenses. What had been a remote mining outpost was transforming into a strategic military base. Jake stood at the memorial service for the 43 colonists who had died in the battle. Their names were carved into a stone monument erected in the colony's main square. Families cried and held each other. Jake spoke about courage and sacrifice, but the words felt inadequate. After the service, a young woman approached him. She was maybe 20 years old, thin and nervous. "Commander Morrison, my father was one of the gun crews. He died when Turret 5 was hit. I just wanted to say thank you for giving us a chance to fight." He would have hated running away. Jake nodded, not trusting himself to speak. The woman walked away. He stood alone at the memorial, thinking about the cost of victory. War was not glorious. No matter what the news broadcasts said, war was people dying while trying to protect what they loved. On the valiant dawn, Captain Ben Torres received his promotion to Commodore. He would command a new task force assigned to patrol the frontier. Nicole Graham was promoted to commander and given her own ship, a new destroyer named the Resolute. Kevin Hayes received commendations and a generous bonus, which he immediately spent on better tools for his engineering team. Ben stood in his quarters, looking at the Commodore insignia on his new uniform. He thought about the battle, about the strange ammunition delivery, about the energy wave that had saved them all. Something larger was happening. Forces moving beyond his understanding. He just hoped humanity was ready for whatever came next. Across the galaxy, War Commander Thexlar sat in a medical bay, his wounds being treated. He had lost his flagship, most of his fleet, and his reputation. The Valorian High Command would 6 months passed since the Battle of Keller's Rest. The galaxy had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. Humanity was no longer ignored or dismissed. Now, other species watched human movements carefully, wondering what these unpredictable newcomers would do next. Lisa Brennan worked 16 hours a day in her expanded laboratory on Horizon Prime. The Commonwealth had given her unlimited funding and a team of 50 researchers. Together, they had made breakthrough after breakthrough in teleporter technology. They could now reliably teleport supplies across vast distances. More importantly, they had learned to control the subspace shockwave. Ryan Carter walked into the lab carrying a data pad. He looked tired but excited. "Lisa, the test was successful. We teleported a full cargo container to the Mars orbital station with 0 errors. And the shockwave was exactly the intensity we predicted." Lisa smiled. "Good. How long until we can install teleporters on military ships?" 3 months for the first installations. Admiral Preston wants them on every capital ship in the fleet within a year, Ryan replied. "That's ambitious, but possible. We'll need to train operators and establish safety protocols. The energy requirements alone are enormous," Lisa said. She looked at the prototype teleporter they had built. It was smaller now, more efficient, but still incredibly complex. This machine had changed everything. It had saved Keller's Rest. It had given humanity a tactical advantage that no other species could match. But Lisa worried about the future. Technology was neither good nor evil. It was a tool, and tools could be used for many purposes. She hoped humanity would use this power wisely. At Keller's Rest, Jake Morrison watched as construction crews finished the last defensive tower. The colony now had 20 railgun turrets, advanced sensors, and underground bunkers that could shelter the entire population. A permanent Commonwealth naval station orbited above the planet, with 6 warships on constant patrol. The colony population had grown to 5,000. New families arrived every week, drawn by jobs and the promise of frontier life. Children played in the streets, unaware that they lived on what had been a battlefield. Jake liked it that way. The future belonged to them, not to memories of war. A young lieutenant approached Jake. "Commander, we're receiving a diplomatic transmission from the Theln Confederacy. They want to schedule a meeting." "What do they want?" Jake asked. "They didn't say specifically. Just that they have a proposal for mutual cooperation," the lieutenant replied. Jake nodded. The Theln Confederacy was being smart. They had watched what happened to the Valorians and decided that cooperation was better than confrontation. Other species would follow. Humanity was becoming a power that could not be ignored. Commodore Ben Torres commanded his task force from the bridge of the new cruiser Commonwealth. The ship was massive, bristling with railgun batteries and equipped with the latest teleporter technology. His task force included 12 ships, all specifically designed to maximize the combination of kinetic weapons and teleportation capability. They were on patrol, near the border with Valorian space. Intelligence reports suggested the Valorians were planning something, possibly a retaliatory strike, to restore their damaged pride. Ben was ready. His ships had trained extensively in the new tactics. They could teleport ammunition between vessels, coordinate attacks across vast distances, and use the shockwave effect to disable enemy systems. Nicole Graham, now commanding the destroyer Resolute, flew in formation with the Commonwealth. Her ship was smaller, but fast and deadly. She had proven herself an excellent captain, earning the respect of her crew and her fellow officers. "Commodore, we're detecting faster-than-light signatures. Multiple contacts emerging from jump space," the sensor officer reported. Ben studied the tactical display. Valorian ships, at least 20 of them. A major fleet. They had come looking for revenge. All ships, battle stations. "Nicole, take the Resolute and the other destroyers on a flanking approach. We'll hit them from 2 directions," Ben ordered. "Understood, Commodore?" Nicole replied. The human task force moved to intercept. The Valorians had superior numbers, but Ben had advantages they could not match. He opened a communication channel to Lisa Brennan on Horizon Prime. "Dr. Brennan, we're about to engage a Valorian fleet. Can you provide teleporter support if needed?" Lisa's face appeared on the screen. "We're ready, Commodore. Just send us the coordinates and cargo specifications." "Thank you, Doctor." "Stand by," Ben said. The fleets closed on each other. The Valorians opened fire first, plasma beams lancing across space. But Ben's ships were moving unpredictably, using their superior engines to dodge and weave. The human railguns fired in coordinated salvos, each ship targeting different enemies. Then Ben gave the order that changed the battle. "Activate teleporter. Execute shockwave." Lisa's team on Horizon Prime activated a massive teleporter array. They were not sending physical cargo this time. They were generating a pure shockwave. A wave of subspace disruption that swept across the battlefield at faster-than-light speed. The effect on the Valorian fleet was devastating. Every exotic energy system failed simultaneously. Weapons went offline. Shields collapsed. Navigation systems stopped functioning. The Valorian ships drifted helplessly, unable to fight or flee. Ben's task force continued firing. Railgun slugs hammered the defenseless Valorian vessels. Ships exploded or broke apart under the kinetic barrage. In less than 10 minutes, the battle was over. Half the Valorian fleet was destroyed. The rest were damaged and retreating. Ben watched them go, feeling no satisfaction in the victory. War was still war, regardless of who won. But he had protected human space. That was what mattered. The Valorian Empire, faced with another humiliating defeat, finally acknowledged reality. They sent diplomatic envoys to the Commonwealth, requesting peace negotiations. The message was carefully worded, but the meaning was clear. The Valorians were ready to accept humanity as equals rather than primitives to be conquered. Other species followed the Valorian example. The Theln Confederacy proposed a non-aggression pact and trade agreements. Smaller civilizations sought alliances with humanity, hoping for protection or economic opportunities. The Galactic Council scheduled a special session to formally recognize the Commonwealth as a major power. Admiral Kate Preston stood before the Commonwealth Assembly, reporting on the state of the military. We have successfully deployed teleporter arrays on 47 capital ships. Another 100 vessels will be equipped within 6 months. Our tactical doctrine has been updated to maximize the synergy between railgun batteries and teleportation technology. No other species in the galaxy can match this combination. The assembly members applauded. One representative stood and asked a question. Admiral, what are the risks of this technology falling into enemy hands? Admiral Preston's expression grew serious. That is a valid concern. The physics behind teleportation are complex, but not impossible to understand. Eventually, other species will develop their own versions. We are maintaining our advantage through continuous innovation and strict security protocols. Dr. Brennan's team is already working on next-generation systems. The assembly debated for hours about military spending, diplomatic strategy, and the responsibilities that came with power. Humanity had changed from a minor spacefaring civilization to a recognized galactic force in less than a year. The transformation brought opportunities and dangers in equal measure. Lisa Brennan watched the assembly proceedings from her lab. The Galactic Council chamber was an enormous space, built to accommodate representatives from hundreds of different species. The architecture reflected thousands of years of galactic civilization, with flowing designs and exotic materials that seemed to shift color in the light. Ambassador Lauren Mitchell stood at the human podium, looking out at the assembled delegates. Lauren was 46 years old, a career diplomat who had spent 20 years working to advance human interests in a galaxy that barely noticed them. She had gray streaks in her brown hair and wore the formal uniform of the Commonwealth Diplomatic Corps. Today was the most important moment of her career. The council speaker, a tall being from the Aldari species, called the session to order. We convene to address the formal recognition of the human Commonwealth as a major galactic power. Ambassador Mitchell, you may present your case. Lauren took a breath and began. Honorable delegates, members of the council, I stand before you representing humanity. For 200 years, we have explored the stars. We have established colonies, built trade networks, and sought peaceful coexistence with all species. We have respected galactic law and honored our treaties. She paused, letting her words sink in. But respect and law are not the only foundations of power. Recent events have demonstrated that humanity possesses both the will and the capability to defend our interests. We have proven that determination and innovation can overcome technological disadvantages. We have shown that we will not be conquered or intimidated. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. The Valorian representative, a different commander than Thexlar, stared straight ahead with an expressionless face. The Theln Confederacy delegates whispered among themselves. Lauren continued, We do not seek domination. We do not wish to threaten others or expand through conquest. But we will not accept being treated as lesser beings simply because our technology developed differently. We offer cooperation, trade, and mutual defense to those who approach us in good faith. To those who threaten us, we offer the same lesson the Valorians learned at Keller's Rest. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some species applauded the speech. Others protested, arguing that humanity was too aggressive, too unpredictable. The debate lasted for 3 hours. Finally, the council speaker called for order. The council will now vote on the recognition of the human Commonwealth as a major galactic power, with full voting rights and territorial guarantees. The vote was close, but the motion passed. Humanity was now formally recognized as one of the galaxy's major civilizations. Lauren felt relief wash over her. The diplomatic battle was won. On Keller's Rest, Jake Morrison received the news and announced it to the colony. People celebrated in the streets. Children waved flags. Workers took a rare day off to enjoy the moment. Jake stood apart from the celebrations, thinking about everything that had led to this point. The colony had been nearly destroyed. 43 people had died defending their home. That sacrifice had changed the galaxy. Jake wondered if the dead would have considered it a fair trade. He hoped so. A young boy, maybe 8 years old, ran up to Jake. "Are we important now?" Jake smiled and knelt down to the boy's level. "We were always important. Now everyone else knows it too." The boy grinned and ran off to join his friends. Jake watched him go, thinking about the future. That boy would grow up in a galaxy where humans were respected, where human colonies were protected by law and military might. It was a better world than the one Jake had known. Commodore Ben Torres stood on the bridge of the Commonwealth, watching his task force patrol the frontier. The border with Valorian space was quiet now. The Valorians had accepted the peace terms and pulled their fleets back. Trade was resuming. Diplomatic communications were professional and respectful. But Ben knew that peace was fragile. The galaxy contained thousands of species, countless factions, and competing interests. There would be other conflicts, other battles. Humanity needed to remain vigilant and strong. Nicole Graham contacted him from the Resolute. "Commodore, we're detecting an unidentified ship at the edge of our sensor range. It's not Valorian or Theln. Sending you the data now." Ben studied the information. The ship was small, possibly a scout or explorer. It was broadcasting a message in multiple languages, including Human Standard. He ordered the communication officer to play the message. A face appeared on the screen, not human or Valorian or any species Ben recognized. The being had golden skin and large eyes. "This is Explorer, Captain Nixala of the Kashari Union. We have heard of humanity's recent achievements. Our people wish to establish diplomatic relations and discuss trade opportunities. We mean no harm and request permission to approach." Ben considered the situation. The Kashari Union was a minor power from the distant reaches of the galaxy. He had heard of them, but never encountered them before. This was an opportunity to expand human influence even further. "Permission granted, Captain Nixala. Welcome to Commonwealth space. We look forward to meeting your people," Ben replied. The galaxy was full of possibilities now. Humanity had proven itself in combat. But the real test would be how they handled peace and prosperity. Ben hoped his people were ready for both. On Horizon Prime, Lisa Brennan stood in front of her research team. They had accomplished incredible things together, but the work was far from over. She held up a small device, no larger than a communication tablet. "This is a personal teleporter, capable of moving a single person up to 10 kilometers. We're still working on increasing the range and reducing the power requirements. Eventually, we hope to create portable units that anyone can use," Lisa explained. The team members asked technical questions about safety systems, energy efficiency, and potential applications. Lisa answered each one carefully. The personal teleporter represented the next phase of the technology, bringing it from military applications to civilian use. Ryan Carter raised his hand. "What about the shockwave effect? Could personal teleporters generate the same disruption?" "Theoretically, yes. But the effect would be much smaller, only affecting systems within a few meters. It would be a defensive tool rather than a battlefield weapon," Lisa replied. After the meeting, Lisa returned to her office and sat down at her desk. She pulled up the original research proposal she had written 8 years ago. The goal had been simple: develop practical teleportation technology for civilian use. Save time, reduce transportation costs, make life easier for everyone. Instead, she had created a military advantage that changed the balance of galactic power. War had come to the frontier, and her technology had been at the center of it. People had died. Others had been saved. The consequences spread in every direction, impossible to fully predict or control. But looking back, Lisa did not regret her work. Science was about discovery and innovation. The applications of that knowledge were determined by society, by leaders and ordinary people making choices about how to use new tools. She had given humanity a powerful advantage. What they did with it would define their place in the galaxy. Lauren Mitchell returned to Earth after the Galactic Council vote. She met with the Commonwealth President and the military leadership, briefing them on the diplomatic situation. The galaxy was watching humanity closely now. Every decision would be scrutinized. Every action analyzed for signs of aggression or weakness. "We need to be careful," Lauren told the president. "We've earned respect through strength, but we need to prove we can be trusted. Other species are still uncertain about our intentions." The president nodded. "We'll continue supporting peaceful exploration and trade, but we won't apologize for defending ourselves or for using every advantage we have." Agreed. The railgun and teleporter combination gives us a unique position. We need to maintain that advantage while building genuine partnerships with other civilizations, Lauren said. The meeting ended, and Lauren walked through the halls of the government complex. She passed offices filled with people working on trade agreements, military logistics, scientific research, and diplomatic communications. The Commonwealth was growing rapidly, adapting to its new role in galactic affairs. She thought about the small mining colony that had started everything. Keller's Rest had been a footnote in Commonwealth records, a remote outpost that most people never thought about. Now it was a symbol of human determination and courage, the place where everything changed. Jake Morrison stood at the memorial on Keller's Rest, reading the names carved into the stone. 43 people who had died defending their home. He came here every week, making sure their sacrifice was not forgotten. Fresh flowers appeared regularly at the memorial, left by colonists who understood the cost of their freedom. A woman approached the memorial and stood next to Jake. It was the same woman who had thanked him after the battle, the one whose father had died at Turret 5. She was wearing a security uniform now, having joined the Colony Defense Force. "Commander Morrison," she said quietly. "Call me Jake. What's your name?" he asked. "Sarah. Sarah Miller," she replied. They stood together in silence, looking at the names. Finally, Sarah spoke. "Do you think there will be more fighting?" "Probably. The galaxy is a big place, with a lot of competing interests. But next time, we'll be ready. And we'll make sure the cost is not as high," Jake said. "My father used to say that freedom isn't free. I never really understood what he meant until he was gone," Sarah said. "He was right. But his sacrifice bought something valuable. It bought you and everyone else in this colony the chance to live without fear. That's worth fighting for," Jake replied. Sarah nodded and walked away. Jake remained at the memorial a while longer, thinking about the past and the future. The frontier had been quiet for so long. Now, it was the center of galactic attention. Humanity had announced its presence with railguns and teleporters, with courage and sacrifice. The shockwave from Keller's Rest had spread across the galaxy, changing everything it touched. Species that had ignored humanity now sought alliances. Enemies who had threatened human colonies now approached with caution and respect. The balance of power had shifted, but power brought responsibility. Humanity would need wisdom to match its strength, compassion to balance its capabilities, and vision to guide its path forward. The galaxy was watching. History was being written, and humanity, for better or worse, was now one of the authors of that history. Jake left the memorial and walked back toward the command center. There was work to be done. A colony to run, a frontier to defend. The future stretched out ahead, full of challenges and opportunities. Whatever came next, Jake knew one thing with certainty. Humanity would face it standing tall, refusing to bow, ready to fight if necessary and to build if possible. The railguns would stand ready. The teleporters would hum with power, and somewhere, in distant galaxies, the shockwave would continue to spread, carrying the message that humanity had arrived and would not be ignored. Oratory. She felt proud of what her team had accomplished, but also concerned about the future. The teleporter had been created to solve a scientific problem. Instead, it had become a weapon that altered the balance of power across the galaxy. Ryan Carter sat down next to her. You know, when we started this project 7 years ago, I never imagined we would end up changing history. Neither did I, Lisa replied. I just wanted to make teleportation work. Now we're responsible for everything that comes after. That's the nature of discovery. We can't predict all the consequences. We can only try to guide things in the right direction, Ryan said. Lisa nodded. He was right. The technology existed now. There was no way to uninvent it. The only choice was to move forward and hope that humanity would use this power wisely. The future was uncertain, but at least humanity would face it from a position of strength rather than weakness. Demand answers. Some would call for his execution, but Thexlar was thinking about something else. The humans had fought with primitive weapons and incredible determination. They had turned their supposed weakness into an advantage. They had refused to surrender even when facing overwhelming force. The humans were more dangerous than anyone realized. The galaxy was about to change, and Thexlar knew his people were not prepared for what was coming. The age of Valorian dominance might be ending, replaced by something new and unpredictable. He closed his 4 eyes and tried to rest, but sleep would not come. In his mind, he kept seeing those railgun slugs tearing through his ships, kept hearing the human commander's voice, refusing to abandon his colony. The memory would haunt him for the rest of his life. E-system, in its path. At Keller's Rest, the Valorian ships suddenly lost targeting lock. Their plasma weapons flickered and died. Their communication systems went silent. The ships drifted in confusion, their advanced technology suddenly failing them. Jake Morrison saw the opportunity immediately. All turrets, fire. Fire everything. Hit them now. The railguns roared again. This time, the Valorians could not evade or defend. Tungsten slugs tore through ship after ship. A cruiser lost its main reactor and exploded. Another took hits along its entire length and broke apart. The Valorian command ship, War Commander Thexlar's flagship, tried to turn away, but 3 direct hits destroyed its engine section. Thexlar managed to transfer to an escort ship before the flagship died. He looked at the wreckage of his fleet, the destroyed colony that had somehow defeated him, and made the only decision that made sense. All surviving ships, retreat. Jump to faster than light immediately. The remaining Valorian vessels fled, leaving behind debris and the wreckage of their pride. Keller's Rest had survived. The countdown continued. 20 hours. 19 hours. 18 hours. The colony waited in tense silence. Children huddled with their parents in the bunkers. Workers sat at their stations, ready to fight. The railgun crews checked and rechecked their weapons. Jake Morrison stood in the command center, watching the screens and waiting for the moment when the Valorians would stop being patient and start shooting. He did not know if help would arrive in time. He did not know if their defenses would hold. But he knew one thing, with absolute certainty. Keller's Rest would not surrender. He opened the colony defense protocols on his computer and began reviewing them. The railgun turrets needed maintenance. The security personnel needed additional drills. The emergency bunkers needed to be inspected and stocked with supplies. If the Valorians came, Keller's Rest would be ready. Outside, the purple sky grew darker as Keller's Rest turned away from its sun. The stars appeared, cold and distant. Somewhere out there, fleets were moving through the darkness, carrying weapons and soldiers and intentions that nobody could predict. The frontier had been quiet for a long time. Jake Morrison hoped it would stay that way, but hope was not a strategy. Preparation was all that mattered now.